Walking into a forgotten structure carries a specific kind of romance. There is an allure to stepping over the threshold of a place that time left behind, expecting to find history perfectly frozen in the dust. Every step an urban explorer takes is built on a specific, fragile assumption that they are entirely alone. The mind fills the silence with the comfort that these decaying walls hold nothing but memories and empty space. Look at this space. This is a closed-down Cleveland school, documented by an explorer named Chris. At first glance, it delivers exactly what you expect from urban decay: collapsed ceilings, shattered plaster, and a lone yellow desk sitting in the wreckage. But as Chris pushed deeper into the hallways, the timeline of decay began to break down. The dust on the floor was disturbed by sharp, fresh footprints, and recent food wrappers lay scattered in the debris. These were recent impressions. Then came a sight that immediately shattered the isolation. Cutting through the darkness of an adjoining section, a distinct moving flashlight beam suddenly swept across the walls. Someone else was actively navigating the building. An independent light source strips away the illusion of a dead world. With the building proven occupied, the explorer transitions from an observer of history to an unwitting trespasser in a hidden territory claimed by someone else. Unwanted encounters rarely begin completely face-to-face. They usually start with a violent break in the ambient silence, a distinct sound that doesn't belong in an empty room. Consider an explorer named James, picking his way through a highly unstable, rotting structure. Minutes into his climb, dread set in as the faint, undeniable sound of a muffled conversation drifted down through the floorboards directly above his head. Sometimes the auditory warning is far more aggressive. A group exploring a cavernous, dark hotel stopped cold at the sound of a faint squeak. Seconds later, a shockingly loud, aggressive scream suddenly tore through the black corridor, echoing from deep inside the complex. This chart compares ambient noise to sudden human intrusion. A voice cuts a sharp frequency through the background drone. Because the threat is hidden, this triggers an instantaneous cortisol release, shown by the secondary curve, forcing a fight or flight state instantly. That single sound forces a shift in tactics. A vast industrial complex suddenly feels like a claustrophobic trap, where every subsequent step requires a calculated risk. If the auditory warning is missed or ignored, the situation escalates to a physical, face-to-face confrontation, and that usually happens right at a blind corner. 2 explorers documented this exact shock inside an old chemical plant. Expecting to find only rusted machinery, they turned a tight hallway corner and locked eyes with a silent man standing completely motionless in the shadows. James faced a similar shock. Upon reaching the upper floor of that unstable structure, a man rushed out of the darkness toward him. James instinctively backed away, his voice raised, rapidly repeating that he was just making a video in a desperate bid to de-escalate the tension. These confrontations carry specific, dangerous variables. There is no law enforcement coming, there are 0 witnesses to whatever happens next, and the exits are often blocked by debris or rotting floors. The decaying environment itself becomes a hazard. Both parties are locked in a high-stakes, unregulated standoff, where neither knows if the other is simply curious, deeply terrified, or actively dangerous. There is a third outcome to these encounters, pushing past accidental meetings and into the darkest spectrum of abandonment, finding physical evidence of deliberate, disturbing activities. An explorer walking through a remote mud-covered settlement documented a sudden shift in the atmosphere. Every house was identically matched in its decay, filled with thick dirt, until he cautiously stepped inside the final structure. The air in the central room was unusually heavy and warm. Placed carefully on a pedestal was a human-sized object, tightly wrapped in a plastic-like fabric, emitting a powerful, unexplainable odor. Finding something like that taps into a primal dread. This structure serves as a theater for illicit or ritualistic acts, purposefully hidden miles away from the eyes of a functioning society. These sprawling industrial corridors and hollowed-out concrete shells are never actually empty. When public oversight ends, the ownership of the space simply transfers to the unseen margins of society. You can see this transfer of ownership clearly in footage where an explorer navigates a heavily destroyed, collapsing house. Hidden deep inside the unstable wreckage, perfectly camouflaged by the ruin, sits a simple survival tent. If we reverse the perspective, the dynamic changes completely. Imagine the terror of being a desperate person seeking shelter in a lightless ruin, only to hear a group of strangers hunting through the halls toward your only sanctuary. The culture of urban exploration thrives on tales of ghosts and the paranormal, but a desperate human being in an unregulated environment poses a far more unpredictable risk than any fictional ghost story. The real-world danger of urban decay remains the living, breathing reality of who is still hiding inside.